Have you ever noticed how, as we get older, things we once took for granted, like warm hands and feet, or the energy to walk a few blocks without stopping, start to slip away? Maybe you've woken up in the middle of the night with your legs tingling, or you've had moments when your hands feel colder than they should, even in warm weather. These little signals aren't just quirks of aging, they're your body whispering that your circulation isn't what it used to be. And when circulation slows down, it doesn't just affect comfort, it affects your heart, your brain, your energy, even your confidence as a man or woman. I remember one of my patients, an 82-year-old gentleman named Harold. He came into my office looking discouraged. He told me, "Doc, I just don't feel like myself anymore. My legs get heavy when I walk, my wife says my memory's slipping, and even at night, I don't sleep as deeply as I used to." He was convinced this was just the price of aging, that there was nothing he could do. But Harold was wrong, and that's what I want to talk to you about today, because you don't have to accept poor circulation as your destiny. My name is Dr. Nolan Easton. I've been working with men and women for more than 30 years, helping them restore vitality and protect their health as the years go by. I've seen firsthand that the foods you put on your plate at 80 can be the difference between struggling with fatigue and weakness or living each day with energy, clarity, and strength. That's why today's topic, healthy food for 80 years old for better circulation, is so close to my heart. Now, let's go back to Harold for a moment. When we started talking about his lifestyle, I noticed something important. His meals were simple, yes, but they lacked the very foods that keep blood vessels flexible and strong. He ate plenty of bread, potatoes, and a little meat here and there, but almost no fresh produce, very little healthy fat, and almost no foods rich in the natural compounds that support blood flow. It wasn't his fault. Many men of his generation grew up on the idea that food is just fuel, and as long as you weren't hungry, you were doing fine. But circulation depends on nourishment. Your arteries and veins aren't just pipes. They're living tissue that respond directly to the food you eat every day. So here's the truth. At 80, your body needs food not just for energy, but for healing and repair. Every forkful you take can either slow down your circulation or bring it back to life. Imagine that for a moment. Your plate as a kind of medicine cabinet, where instead of pills, you're choosing the flavors and nutrients that keep blood flowing freely to your heart, brain, and every corner of your body. This is where I always pause and ask my patients a simple question. Do you want your later years to be about limitation or liberation? Because what you eat plays a bigger role than almost anything else. If you're with me on that, take a second right now to tap the like button, subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so you don't miss what we're talking about in this series. And let me know in the comments, just a yes or no, does this message resonate with you? I do read those responses, and they help me shape advice that speaks to your needs. Back to Harold. When he left my office that first day, I gave him some very simple changes to try. We started with colorful vegetables, things like spinach, beets, and peppers, that are naturally rich in compounds called nitrates and antioxidants. These help blood vessels relax and widen, improving circulation without a single pill. We added in berries a few times a week because they're packed with anthocyanins, little plant pigments that strengthen vessel walls. And we swapped out some of his heavier foods, like fried potatoes, for heart-healthy fats like olive oil and walnuts. At first, Harold was skeptical. He said, "Doc, I've eaten the same way for 80 years. What difference could this make now?" And I told him what I'll tell you, the body is remarkably forgiving. Even at 80, when you give it what it's been missing, it responds. Not overnight, but steadily, reliably. Within weeks, Harold noticed his legs felt lighter on his daily walk. His wife told me his memory seemed sharper, and even at night, he don't sleep as deeply as I used to. But perhaps most importantly, he told me he felt hopeful again, because he realized that even at 82, he still had some control over his health. That's the message I want you to carry with you. Your food choices are powerful. Every time you sit down to eat, you're not just filling your stomach. You're deciding how much blood, oxygen, and energy flows through your body in the hours and days ahead. And that circulation, in turn, determines how well your muscles work, how sharp your mind stays, and how much joy you can draw from the simple pleasures of life, like walking with a friend, laughing with your family, or holding the hand of someone you love. Think about that for a moment. Imagine what it would mean for you if your hands and feet weren't always cold, if your mind felt clearer when you woke up, if you had the strength to climb the stairs without stopping to catch your breath. These aren't dreams reserved for the young, they're possibilities. Even at 80, when you give your body the foods that support circulation. So, as we continue this conversation, I want you to keep Harold's story in mind. He's living proof that it's never too late to change. And his transformation started with something as simple as the foods he put on his plate. Now, let me pause here, because I'd love to know from you, have you ever noticed those signs of sluggish circulation I mentioned earlier? Cold hands or feet, tired legs, or brain fog that just won't lift? Drop me a yes or no in the comments below, because hearing from you helps me see where you are on this journey. And I truly do read those comments to guide future advice. What I can promise you is this: by the time we're done here, you'll understand exactly how healthy food for 80 years old can improve your circulation and why it's the single most important choice you can make to reclaim vitality. And as we move forward, I'll continue weaving Harold's journey with the insights I've gathered over 3 decades of helping men and women like you. Because you deserve not just more years, but better years. Years filled with energy, clarity, and freedom.
When Harold first began changing his meals, he told me something that really struck me. He said, "Dr. Easton, I thought eating differently at my age was pointless. But after just a few weeks, I realized food wasn't just keeping me alive, it was waking me up again." Those words stayed with me because they capture the heart of what I want to share with you. At 80 years old, food isn't simply about filling your stomach. It's about circulation, energy, and giving your body the chance to function the way it was designed to. You see, circulation is like a river running through your body. When that river flows smoothly, every cell gets the oxygen and nutrients it needs. But if the river slows, if blockages build up along its path, then everything downstream begins to suffer. Your heart, your brain, your muscles, even your mood. That's why what you put into your body matters so much. Every bite you take either clogs the river or clears it. Let me give you a simple image. Imagine squeezing a garden hose. The more pressure you apply, the harder it is for water to come through. That's what poor circulation feels like inside your arteries. Pressure building, flow restricted. Now, imagine releasing that pressure, letting the water gush out freely. That's what happens when you feed your blood vessels the nutrients they crave. They relax, they expand, and blood flows with ease. I remember another patient, a woman named Clara, who was 79 when I met her. She was bright, sharp, and independent, but she often complained about feeling lightheaded when she stood up, and she couldn't walk more than 10 minutes without her calves aching. She loved to read mystery novels, but she told me, "Doctor, I can't focus like I used to. My mind just drifts." After looking into her lifestyle, I saw the same pattern I'd noticed with Harold. Too many processed foods, not enough circulation-boosting nutrients. So we introduced her to some simple foods she actually enjoyed. Dark leafy greens, a little dark chocolate now and then, and fatty fish like salmon and sardines. Within months, Clara's energy picked up, her focus improved, and she told me she was back to reading 2 or 3 chapters in a single sitting. But most importantly, she said she felt alive again, as though her body wasn't fighting against her, but working with her. Now, I want you to pause and think about your own meals for a moment. When you sit down to breakfast, lunch, or dinner, what's usually on your plate? Are you eating foods that give your arteries the flexibility to carry blood smoothly? Or are you leaning on habits that leave your blood thick, sluggish, and struggling to circulate? I ask this not to criticize, but to invite you into awareness. Because awareness is the first step toward change. And change doesn't have to be overwhelming. It can be as simple as adding a handful of spinach to your eggs in the morning, or swapping a cookie for a small bowl of blueberries. It can be as straightforward as drizzling olive oil on your salad instead of a heavy dressing. These aren't radical shifts. They're gentle nudges in the right direction, nudges that add up over time. What Harold and Clara both discovered is that the body responds quickly when it's given the right support. Within days of eating foods rich in natural compounds that encourage circulation, they noticed changes: warmer hands, lighter steps, clearer thoughts. Within weeks, they had more energy to engage with life. And within months, they were experiencing vitality they thought had long since passed them by. This is where I want to pause for just a moment to remind you, if you're finding value in this message, go ahead and press the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and tap the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos come out. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Just leave a simple yes or no. Have you ever felt your circulation slowing down with age? Those comments don't just help me understand you better, they guide the advice I share so I can make it more useful for your life. Now, you might be wondering, why does food make such a difference at 80? Aren't genetics the main factor? That's a fair question, and one I hear often. But here's the truth. Genetics load the gun. Lifestyle pulls the trigger. The food you choose every day can either accelerate decline or protect you against it. And science shows that even late in life, your arteries respond to what you eat. They become more elastic, less inflamed, and more efficient at carrying blood to every organ. Think about that for a moment. If you're struggling with fatigue, if your memory feels foggy, if your legs tire easily, what if it wasn't just aging? What if part of it was simply your circulation crying out for better nourishment? What if by making small changes to your meals, you could actually turn the tide? That's exactly what I've seen in my patients time and time again. Harold once told me something after 3 months of these changes. He said, "Doc, I feel like I've been given a second lease on life. I can walk with my wife again without stopping every block. I can sit and read the paper without nodding off, and I sleep through the night." When I hear things like that, I'm reminded of why I do this work. Because no matter your age, your life is still worth living to the fullest. And circulation, healthy, steady circulation, is at the very heart of that. So let me encourage you today. Don't underestimate the power of food. Don't assume it's too late. At 80, your body may not bounce back the way it did at 30, but it does respond. And with the right foods, it can surprise you. It can give you back strength, energy, and moments of joy you thought were lost. And as you sit with this, I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself a few months from now, walking into your kitchen, opening the fridge, and knowing that the foods inside aren't just filling space. They're your medicine. They're your pathway to stronger circulation, sharper memory, and more energy. That picture isn't a fantasy. It's a choice you can begin making today. Because like Harold and Clara discovered, it's never too late to turn the river of circulation back into a steady flowing stream. And when you do, everything in your life, your body, your mind, your spirit, begins to feel the difference.
When Harold came back for his second follow-up, he walked into my office with a smile I hadn't seen in years. His steps were lighter, and when he sat down, he leaned forward with energy instead of slowly easing into the chair. He said, "Dr. Easton, I don't know how else to put this. I feel like my blood is finally moving again." That statement may sound simple, but if you've ever lived with sluggish circulation, you know how powerful it is to feel your body coming back to life. What Harold experienced is what I like to call the ripple effect of good circulation. You see, when blood flows more freely, it's not just your legs that benefit. Your brain gets sharper, your heart pumps more efficiently, your digestion improves, your sleep deepens, even your skin looks healthier. Circulation is the lifeline of the body, and at 80 years old, it's one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. And the amazing part?
That gift can come from something as ordinary yet profound as food. I remember asking Harold what changes he noticed first. He told me his hands and feet no longer felt icy cold at night, which made it easier to fall asleep. He said he could walk to the park with his wife without pausing to catch his breath. But what surprised him most was how much clearer his thinking became. He joked, "Doc, I can finally finish a crossword puzzle without staring at the ceiling for an answer." That sharpness of mind, that clarity, comes from improved circulation, delivering steady oxygen and nutrients to the brain. Now, let me share a moment from another patient's story. A gentleman named Robert, who had just turned 80, came to me worried about fatigue. He said, "Dr. Easton, it feels like my get up and go got up and left." His blood work showed no major red flags, but his circulation was clearly struggling. He rarely ate fruits or vegetables, preferring toast, meat, and coffee for most meals. When I explained that his diet was starving his blood vessels of what they needed to stay flexible, he looked doubtful, but to his credit, he agreed to try adding circulation-friendly foods. Within a couple of months, Robert was calling me to say, "I don't know how food can do this, but I feel like I'm waking up again." That's the beauty of nourishing your circulation. It touches every corner of your life. Here's what I want you to take to heart. At 80 years old, you don't need radical changes. You don't need to cut out everything you love or follow some complicated diet. What you need are small, intentional adjustments that steadily rebuild circulation. Think of your body as a garden. If you want flowers to bloom, you don't tear up the soil and start over. You add water, sunlight, and care. Over time, that garden flourishes. The same is true with your circulation. A handful of berries here, a little spinach there, a drizzle of olive oil instead of butter, a square of dark chocolate instead of cake. It all adds up to a flow of blood that feels alive again. And here's the hopeful part. I've seen these changes in people well into their 80s and even 90s. Just because you've lived many decades doesn't mean your body won't respond. In fact, the body has an incredible ability to repair and renew itself when given the right tools. It may not bounce back as quickly as it once did, but the improvement is real and it's life-changing. I want to pause for just a second here and ask you to do something for me. If what I'm sharing today makes sense, if you believe circulation really is the key to energy and vitality at 80, please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know in the comments with a simple yes or no, do you feel your circulation has slowed down with age? I read through those answers personally, and they help me know how to guide you with the most useful advice. Now, let's return to Harold, because his journey shows just how much food can do. After about 3 months of eating more circulation-boosting foods, he told me something that nearly brought tears to my eyes. He said, "Doc, for the first time in years, I danced with my wife in the living room. I didn't feel tired, my legs didn't ache, and I actually enjoyed the music." Think about that for a moment. At 82 years old, Harold wasn't just surviving, he was reclaiming joy. That's the power of circulation, and it began with a few simple changes to what was on his plate. I want you to imagine your own life for a moment. What would it mean if your legs felt stronger when you walked? If your mind was clearer when you read a book or had a conversation? If you could sleep soundly through the night and wake up refreshed? These are not distant dreams. They are the natural outcomes of better blood flow, and they are within reach, even now. And here's the truth. You deserve this. You've lived through decades of hard work, raising families, building lives, and overcoming challenges. At 80, you shouldn't be resigned to decline. You deserve days filled with energy, moments filled with laughter, and nights filled with peace. And circulation, the steady, life-giving river flowing through your veins, is one of the best ways to get there. When I look back at patients like Harold and Robert, I see more than medical success stories. I see men who regained dignity, confidence, and joy, and I believe the same is possible for you. Every small choice you make at the table has the power to improve the quality of your days. That's not a theory. It's a fact I've witnessed for over 30 years. So let me leave you with this thought for now. Your circulation is not fixed in stone. It's a living system that responds to what you feed it, even at 80 years old. Every time you sit down for a meal, you have an opportunity to support the flow of life-giving blood through your body. And when you take that opportunity, you set yourself up for more energy, sharper memory, and brighter days ahead. When Harold and I sat together for his 6-month checkup, he leaned back in the chair with a look of quiet pride. "Dr. Easton, I never thought food could change so much. I used to think my best years were behind me, but now I feel like I've been given more time, good time." His words reminded me of something I've seen again and again. Circulation isn't just about blood moving through the body. It's about life moving through the body. And when that flow improves, everything changes. By this point, Harold's hands and feet were warm, his legs strong, and his mind clear. He was walking daily, sleeping soundly, and most importantly, living with a renewed sense of joy. His story is a beautiful reminder that even at 80, you're not powerless. You can make choices that keep your body thriving and your spirit alive. I've worked with men and women in their 80s and 90s who thought it was too late. They believed decline was inevitable. But time after time, I've watched them prove themselves wrong by doing something as simple as adding foods that nourish circulation. Dark leafy greens, berries, beets, citrus fruits, walnuts, olive oil, fatty fish. These aren't exotic or complicated. They're everyday foods, but they hold extraordinary power when it comes to keeping blood vessels flexible and blood flowing freely. Think about your own life for a moment. What would it mean if your mornings started with more energy? If your afternoons didn't bring that heavy fatigue? If your nights gave you restful sleep? Imagine being able to walk to the store or the park without stopping, or keeping up with your grandchildren during a family visit. These are the gifts of good circulation, and they are within reach. I want to be clear, I'm not talking about chasing youth. I'm talking about honoring your age while giving your body the care it needs to serve you well. At 80, you've earned the right to enjoy life with comfort, clarity, and strength. And food, simple, nourishing food, is one of the most powerful tools to help you do that. Now, let me pause here and invite you to do something that helps not just you, but our whole community. If this message resonates with you, if Harold's story feels like a reflection of what you want for yourself, please tap the like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon so you won't miss future videos. And let me know in the comments with a yes or no, does this inspire you to look at food differently? I read through all of your responses, and they guide me to share advice that truly meets your needs. I think often of Robert, too, the patient who said his get up and go got up and left. With a few changes, his circulation came alive again, and so did he. He went from dragging through the day to having enough energy to garden, to laugh, to enjoy his evenings without nodding off. That transformation didn't come from medication. It came from circulation-boosting food. And you know what both Harold and Robert discovered? That making these changes wasn't a punishment, it was a pleasure. They found joy in discovering new recipes, in savoring flavors they'd overlooked for years, and in knowing every bite was serving their body instead of working against it. Eating for circulation isn't about restriction. It's about liberation, freeing your body to work the way it was meant to work. I want you to take this to heart. Your body is still listening to you. Even at 80 years old, it responds when you give it the right nourishment. It wants to heal. It wants to strengthen. It wants to flow. And when you give it the foods that encourage circulation, it rewards you with energy, clarity, and peace. So as we come to a close, let's circle back to where we started. Remember those cold hands and feet, those heavy legs, that brain fog that made life feel smaller than